So mudline fishing for carp is one of my most enjoyable methods. I absolutely love it. It's something I grew up doing at venues like the Oaks up in North Yorkshire, and it's something that unfortunately with lakes getting deeper I don't get the chance to do as much. But if there is the option on your local venue, it's a deadly way to catch fish. Fishing tight against that far bank is a fantastic match winning approach. So join me on this video and I'm going to show you a few little tips and tricks to hopefully make your mudline fishing that bit better. Okay, so welcome back to hopefully another fish filled video, and we're at Barby Banks Fishery today. Real nice venue, and it's a typical Snake Lake style venue. We've got just typical depths, you know, 5 foot down the middle and then shallowing up. Now a lot of the pegs are a bit deeper, but this is a lovely one, and I've got a shallow spot. So there's a little hole over there where I can get into actually 22 inches today, but that's a shallow depth for this water, and it's a style of fishing, the mudline, that I used to do all the time when I used to live up north. When I used to live up the Oaks, and a lot of the fisheries back then were newly dug and used to be able to get into lovely shallow depths like that. And we called it the mudline because when the fish started grubbing around in the far bank, obviously all the mud had come up, so we coined it the mudline. I think it was Gareth Drury who started calling it that, and it's obviously cottoned on all these years later. But yeah, it was an exciting way of fishing that took a lot of discipline, a lot of precision, and some clever feeding that helps you catch more fish, because if you get it wrong, it can be an absolute headache. You can foul up loads of fish, miss bites, you can have fish wafting their tails up all around you, and you can't get a bite. It can be the most frustrating thing, and I must admit I've wasted so many matches over the years by getting the fundamentals wrong with mudline fishing. And hopefully these few little pointers will help you on your way to catching more fish in shallow water. So I think we'll go through the bait first. Now the first one, you need small particles. Now it can be ground bait, it could be meat, small bits of meat. Pick something that you can, for some reason, hard pellets for instance on a mudline just doesn't seem to work the same. You're much better off having something for smaller particles. Like I say, ground bait's good, meat can be good, but the number one for me is probably micros. And what I like to do, I like to prepare them in these Tupperware tubs, cover it, fill it to the point of the pellets that I want, and then cover it with water, and then I just put the lid on, do it before I leave or the night before, and pop them in the fridge. Now what I'm trying to get is pellets to be maximum, like the swellage to be as big as they can be. Really nice, and I just feel like giving them a bit of time is good for that. Now you'll notice I can actually squeeze these into quite a firm ball, and that's for a reason. I actually use, it's an old trick we learned from the method a few years ago, 10 years ago, when we had a batch of pellets that wouldn't stick. And I just put a tiny amount of Horlicks in, and I mean just a little bit. And the reason I do that, I think the fish quite like it anyway, it's a nice taste. But it just gives me the option of clumping, and I'll talk to you about clumping the bait together more when we're actually fishing. But for the most part, I will be feeding an overfilled pot like that is just lightly squeezed in, so that I'll put it on the water and it empties out into a little pile like that. That is how you want it, and then your expander or your hook bait is right on top. However, if it's a little bit deeper or you're getting loads of liners, having the option to clump it like that so that your bait gets to the bottom in a more direct manner it can be a real winner. And I just find that having that Horlicks in my pellets just gives me the option of doing both. I can feed them loose with a gentle thumb down technique, or I can feed them in those little harder balls. And I just think that having that in my pellets just helps me, gives me more options to sort out the feeding side of things. So that's a real winner. And like I say, just a pint or maybe even 2 pints of 2 mils is more than enough. Now hook bait wise, it's the choice is yours really, but I always find when I'm fishing with micros, I always feel like my expanders are the best hook bait over the top. And I've just got a mixture of 4 mils. I've got an odd 6 mil in there, but to be honest, a 4 mil expander is my main hook bait. These are actually Blake's ones, which I think are a lovely colour. I just think that colour over the top of micros is a nice standout. We always used to use them golden ones, which are hard to get hold of these days, but these are probably the next best thing, and they're a nice pellet. So I just got them 4 mils in there, and incidentally I pump them. I like to have a little bit of weight, and I just think that pumping them gives my pellet that bit more weight. I know a lot of the really good guys don't bother pumping them, and that's great, but for my confidence I like to pump them, and I just think that with a 16 hook in just lets me nail the bait a bit more. But if I was using ground bait, I wouldn't hesitate to use meat, corn, dead maggots even, maybe even a worm over the top. But as far as I'm concerned, when you're fishing with micros, expanders work, go hand in hand with it. Now the rig is really important. In fact, let's talk about the pots first. Let's talk about the pots, because there's a few little key points, and I've put myself a little tub together here. Let's get this pot off here. And I have this little like working tub almost, and I've got a selection of 3 or 4 different size pots. So we've got the tiny little one, we've got the small, and we've got the medium, and I'll work through the pot sizes throughout the day to deliver that perfect amount of bait, because I overfill every one and I just press it down and then empty it in, and between these different pot sizes there'll be the perfect amount. And what you're trying to achieve is a clean bottom every time. So when you hook a fish, imagine that your bait's gone and you've got to restart your swim. If I've got a pot that's too big for the amount of fish that are feeding, I can assume that there's always bait left over, which isn't too much of a problem. But if you're getting such an accumulation of bait over there, that's when your headaches begin. You'll get loads of liners, you'll get foul hook fish, because you're just adding to the problem. You're just putting more and more bait in, and they just go crazy, and they won't ever find your hook bait. So what you're trying to achieve is the perfect pot size. So you're pulling one fish in, that fish either whacks its tail when you've caught it and spreads the bait everywhere and it's gone, or that fish has eaten the pellets before it's got to your hook bait. That is the best scenario, and you can always tell when that's happened, because you'll go in, put your float in over that little pile, and you'll get a clean bite, no aggro at all. As soon as you're getting any aggro, the float's getting pushed to the side, you're missing bites, foul looking fish, your pot size is wrong. It may be that you're putting too much in, it may be that you're putting not enough in, but just have those options. It doesn't take 2 seconds to come back and change your pot size and reset that trap. Having those options is really important, and it's just something. And to be honest, the small two, the little tiny one is really good for F1s, but this one, the small one, we always used to use bottle tops, and that's a very similar sort of size. That is my preferred choice if I can get away with it. But I will, because I'm fishing for carp today and not F1s, I will try the medium as well. And the medium's sometimes a good starting point to get the swim kicking. You need to get the swim like buzzing. I've got my plummet there, and it's important to use a flat bottom plummet because we're trying to find little dinner plates to fish on. If you've got a plummet that falls over or falls down the slope, it's no good. These Cyclops ones have got a nice big base, so they just stick to where you want them. And I found a little area over there, 22 inches deep, little dinner plate, and it's perfect. Almost imagining it a bit like that, I suppose. And I'm just presenting my bait right in the middle of it. So we're presenting that tiny little pile of micros like that, with a cherry on the top like that, and that is what we're trying to do. And then hopefully every time you catch a fish, you're left with that, and you've got to reset the trap. Bit of a ham-fisted way of showing it, but there you go. So I think we'll start with a medium pot, and it's important to have it close to your pole tip, of course, as close as you can get it, because we're talking about precision, and I think that is a massive part of it, having that close to your pole tip so you can get it right on that float. I've got white zip, which is my favourite sort of F1 and small carp elastic. And then, because it's a bit of a naughty crosswind actually today, I've got probably 18 inches of line. and to keep a tightish line, or a relatively direct line, I've got a string of number 8s above it, not just a block. And it's something we used to do back in the day, and I don't see it so much now, but it works really well. And it's got that string, just allows you to keep a straight line back to your float. And if I've got a fish with a slightly longer line like I have today to keep control, then that's how I'll do it. Now the float is everything. This is a 0.4 Diablo, which is just a lovely little float. There's loads of mudline style floats, and this is our take on it. It's a lovely little diamond pattern, and we wanted a diamond because we wanted the float to stay small but carry a bit of weight. And this, when you lower it in, just goes straight down onto the bristle where you want it. There's no hold up or anything like that. And we're doing it in a 0.3, 0.4 and a 0.5, but to be honest, for mudline fishing, I'll generally go for the 0.4, but because the idea is to get your float in position as quickly as possible over that little trap before it gets disturbed. 0.4 is good, but I won't hesitate to use a 0.5. If the wind's a bit of a nightmare and it's not giving me a long enough window to get my bait into position, I'll use a 0.5 because it just speeds things up. So we've got 0.4 Diablo, perfect, 2mm bristle, glass stem, everything you would want in an island float. And then we've just got a 3-inch hook length and then a little bulk. So there's 4/8 and a number 9 and a little trimmer there, and it's perfect. Size 16 B911, just perfect. And I've plumbed it to the bottom of the body, so it's just a little bit over depth, but not much. And I'll play with that as the day progresses. But it's all about the feeding, it's all about creating that clean bottom in between fishing, having the discipline to come back, go back out and refeed, reset the trap. It's all about that. So without further ado, I've waffled on quite a lot there about them bits, but I think they're quite important. And we can like talk about the actual fishing now, because it's really, really good, exciting fishing. So without further ado, let's get around there and do some fish catching. Now I'm just going to take a moment to interrupt the video. A whopping 72% of you guys watching haven't subscribed to my channel yet. Now it's completely free to do so, and I'm one of the very few anglers left on YouTube that does the whole library completely free. There's no membership section, there's no subscription service where you've got to pay for it or anything like that. All my content is totally free. So all I ask is that you give my channel a subscribe. It's completely free to do so, and it ensures that you never miss another video, and it ensures that more people get to see my videos in the long run too. So I hope you continue enjoying this video, but do me a favour, press that subscribe button. Okay, so let's get going with some mudline fishing, or I call it mudline fishing, but really it's about 22 inches, which is actually a bit shallower than mudlines of yesteryear, but that is what you're up against along a lot of venues these days. It's very hard to get 15, 16 inches of water these days. Most venues just don't offer it, and this is one of the shallower swims on this lake. I've got a little bowl of water there, and I'm using a 16 B911 and a 4mm expander, and it sinks it nicely, that. And yeah, that's the reality, you know. It's sort of 22 inches almost best case scenario. And whereas back in the day I used to fish a lot of like lakes like the Oaks at Sesse, and used to be able to get into whatever depth you wanted, but those venues are few and far between these days. And actually being able to fish in that slightly deeper water and catch them is the main thing. So we've got some micros, which I showed you, and to start with, I'm not going to clump them like I could do to help get the fish down. I'm just going to start by using, I've got to check, a medium guru, and I'm just going to put in like I've overfill my pot like that, and then I just lightly, and this has been done loads of times, your masters like your Andy Bennett's and all that, they're masters at this, and that, you know, just that gentle squeeze so the pellets, when I turn my pot over under the water, will just fall out nicely. So just a gentle squeeze, and let's get out there and see if we can make something happen, because I'm excited about this. I've not done any of this sort of fishing for a while myself. Now we've done the important bits. We've found a little flat spot over there, and it's just up against this grass bank, just short of it in fact. And then what I'm going to do, it's important to get your bait, your little trap set. So let the bait come out like that, and then lift your rig up, and then get it in there like that. Lower it in, and that's why you've got just that bulk on there, because last thing you want is a strung shot in. A lot of your bites, once this gets going, will come really quickly. A lot of the bites will come really quickly, and the last thing you want is to be not in position. You need to be able to get your rig in position quickly. So let's just repeat that process. And going through your pot size is massive. So once again, overfill that pot, and then just a gentle squeeze, and then that'll allow the bait to come out of that pot dead easy. That's where these pots with the holes in the base come in really handy to get that release perfect. So let's just get into position once more. Oh, not perfect that, because the wind got me. Nevertheless, we'll give it a go, see what happens. So the winds, I've got a bit of a longer line than what I normally would have. So I've got 3 number 8 back shot spread out above. And it can just help keep you a tight line when you're fishing like this. So there's a fish there, just got a bit of a liner. And if I get any more liners, I don't hesitate to come back and feed, because you've got to imagine that that trap has been disturbed. So I always start on the medium just because I need to gather some fish and pull some fish into my swim. If I was to go in too negative, it may be that I put the small one, or that I forget what the extra small one on at some point. But for now, medium's good, and we'll. There we go. Nice. Dead in the mouth, that. And it may be that we have to cut the pot size down, but likewise, on a fishery that's carp dominated like this, might have to up the pot size as well. So, just something to bear in mind. Got the old faithful white zip on. Now, if the fish were any bigger, I would have no hesitation using the black, only because sometimes with this mudline fishing, it's a bit like margin fishing where you'll get little windows of good spells you match where the fish come in strong and feed with confidence, and you've got to kind of make the most of those spells. So you're a bit like margin fishing where you catch, you know, 30, 40, 50 pound in an hour. Mudline fishing is very much like that. It can get better and better, or happen later in the day as the fish get a bit more confident in that shallow water. So there we go, that's the first one. Now I didn't set my trap quite as nicely as I would like that time, but that is unfortunate part about fishing in a crosswind like we've got today. So I'm just gonna, I always put a bit of Horlicks on my pellets. It's just something I've always done. It just gives me versatility. Like I can clump my pellets into a little ball, a little tight ball, like give it a squeeze and give it, you know, give them one of them if it's a bit deeper. But also I believe even when I just press them in like that, they just clump a little bit nicer in the pot. Just a small detail, but one that I think can make a big difference when you're fishing like this, because we're trying to get that bait to the bottom in as smaller area as possible and then present our hook bait right on top of it. So pot in first, you'll see it empty like that, lift the float on top, and this is why you've got that 0.4 on, because they're straight over the top of that bait. And we're fishing now and we're waiting for a carp to come in. Now, I could use corn, I could use meat, I could use maggots. I really like expanders, and I think it's probably from my past, like I said, fishing up at the Oaks and stuff, and expanders was always a great bait and I just like them. And let's just see. There we go. Oh, that was like textbook really. This is great. I love fishing like this. Once you get that mudline rocking, and it's simple fishing, but you've just got to get the fundamentals right. Like I say, in an ideal world, the swimming would be a little bit shallower than what it is. 18 inches would be ideal. But beggars can't be choosers, and on a venue like this where there's not that much shallow water, a swim like this, well looked, coming off in a million years. A swim like this, with that top 22 inches, is nice. So let's repeat the process. So I'm really happy actually with how I'm getting bites cleanly with that medium pot, so I don't feel like there's any need to alter it. I must admit, for F1s, they can be a bit of a nightmare, and you might have to go down to a tiny little pot, especially if you're fishing for numbers of fish. At a place like Westwood, you might need a little diddy pot on, for example. But for carp, I do feel like you can probably feed a little bit more for carp than you can for F1s, because I think they're just a bit more confident feeders, but there's still a balancing act to be had. If I was to put a bigger pot on, it might end up being a bit of a disaster. So I've got my little tape mark on my pole, get those pellets in, lift it up, and just get it in there. As long as it's over them pellets, I'm happy. I used to be one for lowering it in like I was bloodworm fishing, but as long as I feel like that rig's fishing, get it in. Because it all happens quick. Like you put that bait in, and the fish come to it quick. And if you're fanning around getting your rig in position, you might have missed your window and the bait might have all been dislodged and scarpered. So you're trying your best to create this perfect little trap, but by fanning around getting your rig in position because you've got too light a float on, or you're lowering it in dead slow like you're fishing bloodworm like Alan Scott on, the bait could have already been disturbed by the time you get your float set. So just long as it's presented well, just get it in there. I think that's so important, and as you can see, when they're on it like this, you get your bites. Lovely fishing. Like I say, it's lovely that the carp as well and not F1s, because they're a bit more aggressive and nice to catch. I mean, they're £2 to £3 a go, and it's just great fishing. Now, one little trick that actually I got taught by someone called Phil Sellers, who's a fantastic angler, years and years and years, and he probably can't even remember telling me this, but because I was only young, is to use, and he was doing well at Woodlands at the time, with double expander. And it's something that I've done a video on, fishing in the edge with double expander on this venue. When I'm mudline fishing, I love using 2 expanders. I just think it's a standout bait. And it's, you might say, well, why don't you just use a 6mm? But I don't know, it just never seems to work as well as 2 4mm. I don't know why. I couldn't even tell you why. It's a confidence thing, and that double 4mm can work. So let's just see if that'll work for us. I'm sure it will. Lovely fishing. I love this sort of fishing. It's so easy to get it wrong. And I used to ruin so many matches trying to fish the mudline, getting myself all flustered and in a rush, when the reality is very different. There we go. So get that rig over the top and then get it in there. And if a fish comes in and I don't catch it and it moves my rig out of position, I'll just lift it up and get it over the top. As long as I feel like my pile's not been disturbed, I'm happy to move my float back into position, because you will get a lot of water movement over there. See, a fish has moved my float, but I don't feel like it's moved my bait, if that makes sense. So I'm happy to just sit for a few more seconds. So let's just lower it back down, get it in position. Feel the weight of that bulk, drop it in. It's quite nice. I'm not seeing any fish behind the rig or anything. That's one thing that happens quite a lot with mudline fishing as well. You often, you will get little waves of fish almost, as in, like you'll catch 2, foul up. That was me being lax with me presentation. You will get like 2 or 3, then you'll get like a little lull, because obviously you're fishing in shallow water. There can't be 50 carp there, can there? There can only be a few, so you've got to wait for little pods of fish coming in, I guess, is the way to describe it. So I lost that one because I didn't get my fundamentals quite right, and that is everything. So let's just slow things down, make sure we're... And I'm using a 0.4, but to be honest, because the wind is quite bad today, a 0.5 Diablo wouldn't go amiss here, because it just set that much quicker, like a fraction quicker. Which just, when you're fishing in wind, is everything. You need to get your floating position a bit quicker. Like that, just give me a touch more control and speed at setting this rig. So I wouldn't dismiss using a 0.5 in this sort of situation when you've got a strong crosswind. 0.4 is the ultimate choice. It just seems to be the right float for this kind of fishing. But I'd never rule out 0.5. That felt good. There's a few fish there now. And we've gone from catching them nice and clean for the first 2 or 3 fish. Then we foul up one, and then this chuck we've actually had a few liners, missed a bite. So maybe there's too much bait there now. So what I'm going to do next chuck, I'm actually going to go down a pot. I'm going to go down a pot and see if that tidies it up a bit. Okay, so these small details sometimes can make all the difference. So I'm just going to put I believe it's a small. I'm not up on my guru pots. I just bought a couple actually the other day. And so let's give that small pot a whirl. Same thing, slightly overfill it, gentle press. Let's see if that's just the right amount of bait. And if this doesn't get me the clean response, I'm actually going to clump the bait next time in a little ball. I'll put that medium pot back on and feed it as a hard, little small hard ball, and that might just pinpoint the fish a bit better. But let's worry about that in a minute. Let's just get this in position. See if that's the right amount of bait. It might be. It's the accumulation of bait that causes the problem, because you get fish wafting it all over. So ideally, what you're looking for is your peg to be clean every time you go over there. So it's getting the judgment between having enough bait to pull the fish in than having a build-up, because it's the build-up of bait that causes the issues, because you get, some goes up in the grass, some comes down, and the fish end up a bit confused. Whereas ideally, and it's purely only theory, but you're hoping that every time you get a bite, that fish has almost cleaned that pile of pellets out. And it sounds good in theory, but that's kind of what we're trying to achieve. And that was better, but with that smaller pot, much better. And I must admit, look, top lip as well, so we're doing everything nice. And I must admit, I'd rather mudline fish without clumping the pellets in the ball. But if I do have to go down that route, then I will. But I do think loose pellets are slightly more attractive. Give that little finger down. I'll just try and catch a couple more. So I'm enjoying this. I don't know about you guys, but I'm enjoying it. Important to have that tape marker on your pole. I've got it right on the end of this section, in between my dolly butt and my 13 metre. It's so important, that is. So you're right on that little flat bit that we found with the plummet. So that was my fault, that missed bite. I'd not quite got my presentation right. The wind is tricky. Maybe that small pot is the one. Where? Oh my. Unbelievable. Done me in a branch. Whoa, got the branch back. Branch is coming my way. Look at that. Look at that for a beast. Beastie branch. Save someone a few lost fish, getting rid of that. Not least me. I just lost that fish in the branch, and I'm worried that my float's moved. So what I'm going to quickly do is whiz over with the plummet on and make sure that everything's perfect, because the last thing we want is for our float to move, because we're doing everything with such precision that can be an absolute nightmare. So let's just double check everything's dead right. You see, I think I'm ever so slightly over depth there, whereas I need to be there. See, I reckon my float's moved an inch there. So let's just drop it down a little bit. And these are the fine details that sometimes missed. Like, you just, all it takes is for you to lose a fish, or that fish went in that snag, that little branch, and it moves your setup, and it can spell disaster in terms of foul looking fish. And I can see I've got a mark on my pole there. I'm just going to remark it on with the old kit marker, an inch less. Let's just see how that goes. Right, so we'll just try and catch one more. Again, I think that there's a few key points to learn here. Obviously, preparing your micros in a way that they're nice and big, and then with a sprinkling that haul, it's not a lot, that just gives you the versatility of making a ball. That's a nice one. Have yourself some nice formula expanders, but it could be corn, it could be meat. Have a hook bait that you're confident with. have that heavy rig, so the 0.4, but in this wind, like I say, I would happily go on to a 0.5. No, not even a drama for me, that. And then being accurate, and being precise and methodical in what you're doing, and having the discipline to, if you miss a bite or you feel like a fish has been in and you haven't caught him, have the discipline to come back and reset that trap. That's what gets you more bites with this style. Having that discipline. Because it'd be easy. Like there, I just had a few little indications and I haven't caught the fish. So it'd be easy for me to just sit here forever and wait for it to come back. But all them micros might have been washed away, so I might just be nothing there to attract fish. In this instance, I do feel like my bait is probably still there, so I'm prepared to wait. Yeah, I was right to wait, because I didn't feel like the indication I got was enough to suspect that my bait had all been disrupted. I think that's a lovely little bit of mudline fishing for you. Really enjoyable. I say, in an ideal world, you'd get into probably 18, it's probably about the right depth. But, you know, beggars can't be choosers, and I know for a fact that this is one of the shallower pegs on this venue. And probably quite typical of what most modern mudlines are, really. That's a lovely fish to end on. Absolutely perfection on the hook hole department. That top lip, lovely. Absolute perfection, that fish, when it comes to mudline fishing. So, there you have it, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. Nice bit of fishing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again on the next video. Thanks for watching.